All right, let's dig in. So today we're going to talk about how to land a ton of meetings without wasting a bunch of hours personalizing, and specifically, what we're going to dig into is cold email. So, want to thank our sponsors before digging in. Magical, it's a tool that I just started using a couple months ago that's really badass. If you find yourself copying and pasting a lot, let's say that you're sending messages on LinkedIn and you have a whole flow that you like to walk people through. If you're copying and pasting a lot of templates back and forth, I would definitely check out Magical. It's at getmagical.com. And then Mixmax, of course, it's my sales engagement tool of choice. I love that it's just super easy to use. And we got Jack from Mixmax here today, but it's such an easy tool to use that you can literally set up in less than an hour by yourself. So go check out Mixmax as well. Our speakers today, we got Jack Wasson on the show again, SDR manager at Mixmax. What's up, Jack? Good to
How we
have you
doing?
again, man. Good to jam. Florin, I think we've been
What's
on a
up?
bunch of stuff. I feel like lately we've just been collaborating on a bunch of things cold email related. But
Yeah.
um, I got Florin on the show today, founder at Salesflow, and I think I learned about you just through your content, man. You post some really, really good content on LinkedIn around email. Um,
So good.
you're always really good at sharing the stuff that you're doing and how it's working, and that's what we're going to dig a lot into today. So there's going to be three big things that we cover today. We're going to look at data and trends. So we're going to look at the state of cold email in 2024, what's working, what isn't. We're going to give you a simple cold email approach. And then what we're going to spend the back half doing is each of us actually wrote an example cold email. I did it on behalf of a client. I don't know, Florin, where'd you get yours?
Uh, there's a tool I really like called Hyperbound, so I just like pretended I was working for them.
Oh, love it. Okay, so he pretended he was working for a company, Hyperbound, and then Jack, he reached out to sales leaders and SDR leaders. So we got an example for you there as well. Okay, let's dig in, you guys. I got a question for the audience. Let me know in the chat, how long will a prospect spend reading an email once they decide that they're going to open it? You two haven't seen the slides yet either, so feel free you two to guess as well. What do you think?
I'm gonna go with 7 seconds.
Okay, seven
Yeah, mine's
seconds.
like five to 7 seconds, like very short.
So pretty good guesses. I'm looking in the chat. I mean, we're like all over the place with chat. I think the consensus is that it's not very long. According to Statista, this is from 2023. It's 9 seconds. So the reason why I share this is the average reading speed of an adult, at least in the United States, a college educated adult, is 250 words per minute. So if you do the math, in 9 seconds, the typical person's only going to read around roughly 50 words. So what do most people do? They tend to skim. So I wanted to show you guys a screenshot of my inbox. These are cold emails that I've received in my inbox. Let us know in the chat, what do you guys see about these emails in the subject line and the first line that just screams, this is a cold email, I'm a
Right.
salesperson? What sticks out to you at first glance, Jack?
The ones that really scream, I mean, this is also the same for me, but if my first name is in the subject line, I immediately know I'm about to get sold to. So
Yeah.
like Jack sales or Jack outbound selling, I just immediately, that's a like, I'm about to be pitched, probably not even going to open it. So 9 seconds is actually pretty baffling. I didn't think it was that long, but I definitely think if you do yourself the disservice of putting that in your subject line, you could definitely not even get those, not even a second on your email.
So you know what's funny though? That was the play like 3 or 4 years ago, was to put the person's first name into the subject line.
Yeah.
And now it's like people just get kind of so desensitized to it. Florin, what do you see in these emails to you that just screams, this is a sales email? I don't even have to open this thing.
Yeah, I think putting your first name in a subject line. So usually you want to make it sound as internal as possible, and anybody that actually knows you is never going to use your name. I
Yep.
actually know people that filter emails in their inbox so that if their first name is in the subject line, they don't even see it.
Oh, wow. That's a good technique, actually, if you're an executive or in
That
executive
is
assistant.
good.
Yeah.
So the first name, the other thing is, The three of us, we've had a lot of email communication together. None of us used subject lines, maybe outside of like the SaaStr follow-up subject line, something like that. That's like it's the event name that I signed up for,
Yeah.
right? Follow up. It's super simple. It's really obvious what this is about. But the way that we have emailed each other and chat with each other looks nothing like what you see here on my screen. Oftentimes it's not capitalized. I don't know how you guys feel about even starting with hi first name sometimes. You know what I mean? It just looks that's just not typically how I communicate with people that I know. So yeah, questions in the subject line, Lewis says.
Yeah. I'm
Hello.
always a fan of informal and super short subject lines. I think even Jason, you and I have chatted about this, and I learned from you, like almost the shorter and more vague, the better in a way, because that kind of just
Yeah.
sparks people to, if you don't know them, or if I don't know the person, I'm going to open this email because I don't know what this is, what's pertaining to. So that's a good one. But also too internal, like if I get an email from my VP of sales, it's direct to the point. It's maybe even one word.
Yep. And Florin, you had kind of mentioned this, but can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by matching internal communication style? I think was the phrase that you used.
Yeah, so it should sound like it's coming from a colleague internally, right? So a colleague is gonna cut formalities completely. They're likely not gonna like ask you a question off the bat in an email, like or hope you're doing well.
Yep.
Um, I think that that's the main thing. And also, obviously, not having very long subject lines. Like when you message internally, it's usually like one or two words.
Yeah, or it might be like the name of the project, right? In the
Yeah.
subject line that's like 3 words long. So before we get into some of the tactics here, everyone, um, what we want to do, our objective with the cold email is we want it to have a one-to-one look and feel, but we don't want to have to spend hours custom writing an email for every single person. So most cold emails scream this like one to many marketing style that's like super formal, filled with corporate speak. We make the same mistakes in our cold calls sometimes too, where I call it customer service voice. Right? We go into this like, oh yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you, Jack. How are you doing today? And we kind of do the same thing with email where it gets super formal and then making it really high effort to read and respond to. We really want to do the opposite of this. So how do we make it feel one to one, personalized where necessary, concise and conversational, and then super low effort to read and respond to? So what we're going to dig into here is I'm going to go through some data around the formatting and the framework of the email that we're going to give you. And then we're going to try to spend as much time as possible actually walking you through 3 real examples. What I would love to know in the chat, we got a bunch of you on the call today. What is the number one challenge that you have with getting replies to your cold emails? Is it finding the right thing to personalize? Is it takes too long to write? Is it I know that they're too long, I don't really know how to shorten them down? I don't really know how to end the emails. I'm not sure if they're going to spam. Let us know in the chat so that we can customize this for you guys a little bit today. What's the number one challenge getting in the way of you getting better outcomes through your cold emails?
I know for me, and I'll even own this myself. It's always been trying to keep it concise. I still struggle with this. Like it's always a common thing where I can talk all day, especially if I get someone on the phone, but email, it really restricts you. And I think that's what we're learning now with the outbound world today. Short is better. Short, concise. Do not make it ever long. So that one's always been a little tricky for me, is keeping it really short and concise.
Yeah.
I've obviously reviewed a ton of emails. This is one that maybe is like going a layer deeper than just saying like like finding the right thing to research. I actually think the hardest part is being able to tie the trigger or the observation that you've researched to how your solution can help. So tying context. It's something that in all the emails that I've reviewed is almost always lacking.
Yeah. So connecting the email together, I think, is really, really big. Yeah, tying context to CTA, basically, Daniel says. Yes. Okay. So let me share my screen here. This is what we're going to dig into today, and this is the thing that we're going to leave you guys with. So we have a cold email mastery sort of playbook here that we're going to share with you. So you guys hang on. We're going to share this towards the end of the session. Everything that we talk about is going to be captured in here that we're going to go through. We're going to go through sample emails. So each of us has a sample email that we're going to break down. There's a cold email grader that we're going to give you guys. And we may or may not get to this, but there's a whole little section here on sequencing, how many times you should reach out, the data behind it, what it should look like, all that kind of stuff. So make sure to stick around until the end. We'll get that to you. So we talked about one-to-one look and feel that doesn't take hours. Let's zoom in here. I really want to dig into this concept of like mobile ready emails. This is something I saw people kind of talking about a couple years ago, but there's a lot of data around. Well, let me ask you two actually, Jack. Jack and Florin, are you more likely to throughout the day open emails through mobile or through desktop? And I think it's kind of tough because we're all salespeople too.
Yeah.
So
I
what's it
um
look like for you two?
I think I mean I work remote, so I'm at home, so I'm at my desk majority of the day. But I think majority, especially I have a little one now, so I'm away from my desk, like having to take care of her. So I'm opening emails pretty much on both sides, desktop and mobile. But I think if I were to choose, I'm probably more mobile now, actually. So it's even more important because like now we know as soon as you get a notification, you can disregard it as soon as it comes across. So definitely mobile for me.
Yeah, as a rep, it was on desktop for sure. But what I noticed is when I became a manager, I my meetings are usually back to back. It's like one-on-ones, internal meetings, whatever. Then I would usually like take a peek at the email on my phone first, and then if it was important, I would go and like actually read it in more depth on my laptop.
Yeah. So a lot of the people that we're reaching out to are in those managerial and executive positions that are opening emails on their phones. So we have to think about how something reads on the phone and how it's optimized for the phone experience. And I think this is like the first kind of big strategy with email is for a lot of us, if all you did was shorten the email down and do like one sentence paragraphs, you would probably double or triple your reply rate just doing that. Um, so the data supports emails around 50 to 75 words. I mean, it says here emails under 50 words get 60% more replies. We're not implying that every email has to be 50 words, but somewhere between 50 and 100 words is really where you want to be. Under 75 is usually what I suggest. And 1 to 2 sentence paragraphs. I want to give you guys a visual on this. Yeah, Justin, and for anyone else asking, I will share this document. I'm not going to share it until the end though. So just make sure to kind of stick around and we'll email it out afterwards too. Um, so let me know. What do you guys think here? This doesn't look like a terrible email to me when I see this. This is an email I got from this guy. It's personalized. I mean, turn complete strangers into paying customers. That was our tagline at the time on the website. And I kind of skimmed this. I'm like, okay, I see he's got Facebook ads. Mind if I share a unique approach? Nah, I don't really sell courses. Now, when I look at that same email on mobile, though, I don't know. Is this harder to read on the phone for you guys? Because for me, my eyes almost completely glaze over when I see it on the phone.
I
Yeah,
agree.
100%.
Too chunky. Paragraphs are too long. Spacing's all kind of weird. Yeah. Yeah, Tyler says, yeah, that's wild. Way worse on mobile. Same exact email. I can skim this. This one, I don't even want to read this one
I
because
know.
it feels so long. And it's not
That's
even that long of an email.
that's what I was thinking. It's like it's just the look of it. I don't want to go through line by line and read.
So to expand on this a little bit more, and the screen that I'm sharing right now is a second desktop. So when a customer or a prospect does open up an email, typically what they'll do is open on mobile and then respond on desktop. But you have to be really mindful of how something reads on desktop. And what you see here, the stuff in red, Sales Loft and Corporate Visions, or excuse me, Vidyard and Corporate Visions did a big eye tracking study. And what they found is that people spend the majority of the time reading the stuff on the left. They don't even skim over the areas in green. They don't even read the stuff over here on the right. So having long sentences in your email, stuff like this, long sentences and long paragraphs, you got to remember on desktop, this sentence is going to stretch all the way across the screen, and people are just not going to read this stuff on the right. So formatting for mobile is super clutch. So I want to talk a little bit about the framework. This is what I teach, and I'm curious to get your two feedback on it, and then we're going to dig into some of the emails. This is generally what Flora and I've seen you teach us. You don't call it the same thing, and you don't call these chunks the same thing, but it's generally a similar framework of I need a short subject line. Let's give the reason why I'm reaching out, connect it to a problem that they might be having or that their peers have, other people we've solved that problem for, and then a call to action. Florin, I'll kick this first question your way. How does this compare to like how you think about the framework and the flow of the email?
Yeah. I think it's pretty spot on. So I just call it like reason is the what's the observation or trigger. Then I go into like stating the current state, which is the problem. Social proof is tied into the future state or the ideal state. And
Yep.
then the exact same thing with the CTA. And usually I would probably add a PS as well sometimes.
Yeah. And PSs, I mean, Lavender's got some data, and it can't be a weird PS. It depends on what you put in there, but it showed that emails will have a 26% increase in reply rate with a PS. So I think a PS is like a very strategic thing to do in an email, if done correctly. Uh, Jack, what about you? How does this
I,
compare to your guys' approach and how you typically look at these?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for us as well. I think one thing that we've really taken a huge shift to is obviously this is no secret, right? But ask for interest. Don't ask for a meeting. I think a lot of reps get really caught up in that. Like it's super important to ask for interest before you ask for the meeting. The meeting will come, but you got to ask for interest because if you don't have that right off the cuff, then you're in trouble. I'm also a big fan of PSs. I think I've really pushed this on my team. I think it kind of gives you that, like, you have your email, you have all the reason, the problem, social proof that you're putting in there, but the PS is your opportunity to where if you want them to check out article or anything, like anything tied to what you're getting to, or even separate, that's your
Yep.
cue to put it in your PS. So I like adding that in.
Yep. So I'm going to drop something in here. This is something I created with Magical, you guys. I have a cold email starter pack with a bunch of templates based on the principles and frameworks that we're going through today. Make sure to grab that. Magical's it's a free tool. It's pretty badass. So make sure to check it out. Um, let's start dissecting this email framework and looking at some of the data. So Jack, I'll kick this first question your way. In terms of subject lines, how do we think about if we're going to break down this email? Subject line, first line, second line, third, etc. How do we think about the subject line? What are some of the principles that we might want to follow?
Well, I think the one that we just looked at, but I tell my team this, 5 words or less. I think some teams have different, but 5 words or less is the framework we always stick by because anything more, you're probably going to, it's just a pretty strong chance you're not even going to get an open on that email. So subject line, but also keeping it informal. So short, informal. And I've even been a huge fan right now of 1 word, 1 to 2 words, like subject line, as vague as possible. Sometimes even helps get opens. So that's kind of the framework we go by. 5 words or less, informal, and if you can, vague.
Yep. Lauren?
One thing that I really like to do in subject lines, and I did A/B tests on this, is actually, if possible, call out a direct report of the manager or executive you're reaching out to
Yep.
that is tied to the problem that you're trying to solve or is likely a direct user. I actually have in my email, I did that. So I have a tactical example.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool example. If you sell software, which most of the people on this webinar, I'm assume selling software, typically the people that you sell to are not the people that use the software. So in
Yes.
Jack's case, that's reaching out to a sales leader and mentioning one of the SDRs or account executives if you're talking about self-sourcing.
Mhm.
Um, HR, I think, is another really kind of popular example to use as well. But that's like immediate. If I see an employee or a direct report of mine's name in a subject line, you're definitely going to open up that email. Um,
100%.
so I got some other, kind of data on subject lines. And again, in about 10 minutes or so, you guys, we're going to dissect all of our emails and show you all of this stuff in action. And we're going to give you this document at the end too. Um, so interesting stuff from Lavender too, and some people were asking. Lavender's data is it's based on 2023 and 2024 is the data that I'm referencing. Um, Questions reduce open rates. Putting numbers can reduce open rates. Punctuation, so question marks, exclamation marks can reduce open rates. And we already talked about first names. I'm surprised it's only 12%. I think it also depends, as with everything else we're sharing, the caveat is who are you reaching out to and are they in tech? Because if they're in tech, they probably get used to a lot of these tactics being done on them. Whereas if you're reaching out to people in like, you know, transportation, operations, and manufacturing plants. Like these people aren't like in the tech world. They might not be as used to being on the receiving end of some of these techniques, right? Um,
Yes.
but I like some of these frameworks, pointing out specific problems. So instead of talking about your AI powered enterprise CX tool, point out the Canada Goose chatbot page that's not working, right? One of the highest performing subject lines of a client I worked with, they sold an automated welding solution to manufacturers. They didn't put automated welding as the subject line. It was one word, it was welders, and it was 90+% open rate because that's the number one thing they're thinking about is Dakota's on the call. What's up, Dakota? Um, that was my old client, Dakota. So that's the number one thing that was on their mind, right? Putting this is a Jen Allen play. She likes to use this one a lot, right? Company initiatives from the CEO, IPOs. This is people on their team. This is the play that you just mentioned, Florin,
Yep.
right? The rule of three, stacking some of these together, right? So I think subject lines people tend to overthink, in my experience, like how to be really tricky and creative. But what I'm getting from you two, correct me if I'm wrong, is let's just be really short and simple
Yeah.
and err on the
Short and
side of
simple.
being really obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see the theme there. It's like all of those sound internal, like welders. That's something like a CEO would send to like their executive team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welders. WTF? Where are they at? No one wants to pick up a.
Also, I got to give a shout to Dakota because he brings up a good one here that competitors. I think competitors is another really good one. Like for us, Mixmax, we have so many. It's like now the list is ever growing, but one word and that competitor. And if you do your research properly, hopefully you do it right and you call out the tool they're using, which is your competitor, but then you tie it back into how you differ, what you can do better. That's a really solid one. We've done that internally for us, so it's been good.
One thing that might be helpful, there's on X and they also have a Substack. There's a page called internal tech emails. So they will literally document like very high level executives from Microsoft, like Facebook, etc. Document these emails that were in court cases, so they're public now. Just go and look at how like these people talk, like Zuckerberg, like Jack Dorsey. Just look at their emails and you can learn some things about how executives communicate.
That's cool.
Oh man, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm actually looking at this right now.
That's not a
Yeah,
tool. It's like it's a page on X and it also has a Substack.
techemails.com. I just dropped into the chat there. Sign up for that. That's pretty cool. Oh man, this is really, really helpful, you guys. Yeah,
There
good
was
work.
one from Sam Altman back in the day messaging Elon Musk. He sent like 5 paragraphs, and Elon Musk was like, "I agree." Like that's it. Two.
Um, okay, let's talk one more piece. I want to talk call to actions, and then what we're going to do is just show you guys three examples of emails. Jack, I'm going to drop this link into the chat for you too, just so you have this document that I have open right now. And then you could get your stuff ready to show us here in a second. Okay,
Cool.
so this is data from Gong. And what's kind of funny is things can change, but this is what they found. And this was earlier part of last year that they shared this, I think, or it was the latter part of 2022. And it was how do I end my emails? So if I end my emails asking specifically for time, if I ask an open ended question versus just gauging the prospect's interest to get a yes or a no, what they found at the time was that the reply rate was 2 to 3 times higher if I ask an interest based question because it's low friction, right? Stuff like this. Open to learning more. Does it make sense to connect? Like basically getting a yes to something smaller than committing their time to you versus high friction, open ended emails that ask a question like this. So I'm curious what you two are seeing because I in my assessment and sending a lot of these emails and working with a lot of customers that do, it's not that the specific calls to action that ask for time are bad. It's just that if you just end every single email with a specific ask for time, it just gets kind of draining for the prospect, and I feel like it can be a little aggressive and get a lot of unsubscribes if you do too much of it. But Florin, I'll start with you. What have you seen in terms of like call to actions, like how to kind of end the email in a great way? What style of call to action are you
Yeah, I think you
recommending
haven't
for
really
this?
earned the right to ask for time in, like, for example, a first email. And that's the thing, right? So if you say, are you free to meet tomorrow? Like, in my mind, if I'm not free, it's just an extra little bit of friction. So
Yeah.
if you think if like in the grand scheme of things of sending hundreds or thousands of emails, like every single little step of friction that you add is probably going to cause a little bit of a drop off. So the way that I look at these things, it's not like if you have an interest-based CTA, you're automatically going to book a meeting. It's more like death by a thousand paper cuts. Like you want to get 10 things right so that you're increasing your chances, because at the end of the day, outbound and prospecting in general is a high volume play in the long term.
Yep.
So I always use interest-based CTAs. Sure, a lot of people are using them now, so the appeal kind of went away, and I mentioned that in the comments. I think you just have to change it up a little bit with the interest-based CTA to keep it low friction. And I actually use an example of an interest-based CTA that's a little bit different in the email we'll show.
Jack?
Very much the same. I think we for the there was a time when every email you asked for time or you just drop your calendar link, schedule here. I think those times are so far gone where, again, we're touching on low friction. And I think it's just because there's just thousands of emails that people are getting daily, hundreds, thousands, whatever you want to call it. So you want to make it as quick and to the point and yes, no interest, does this look interesting? Does this sound like something your team could find value in? Something as simple as that. I mean, I got to give you'll see it in my email too, but I'm also a really big fan of our own internal tool, Mixmax, with polls. I have to give a shout because we eat our own dog food over here, but literally just giving people an option, just click a button, let ask the call to action, hey, does this look interesting? Yes, learn more, maybe, not interested, go away. One click and then you're on to the next. So just eliminating as much as possible and giving people an easy in or out, whatever that may be, has been a huge, huge help.
Yeah, I think if you think of email like traffic, you know, traffic when it's really bad when you're driving around and it's really congested, you're always looking for ways to like eliminate unnecessary decision making, right? So you don't want to have to swerve around or change lanes. Like all of that just is really exhausting over time. If you think about email in a similar way, the total volume of email that gets sent grows like substantially every single year. So that person's inbox is getting more and more flooded, literally on a monthly basis. So if you're doing Jack like what you suggested, like how do I just make it easier to like interact with this email and do it in
Yeah,
a click instead of replying to it? That's like that's reducing friction and making things easier to get around. So all right, I was looking at some of the stuff in the chat. I'm loving some of the stuff in the chat here. Yeah, all of these CTAs that you guys are sharing in the chat are great. I
yeah,
love the one.
y'all got good CTAs.
Yeah, this one's like an advanced, this is like a 300 level version, I feel like, of what we're talking about that Michael Bunch shared. Cool if I share a tool that's getting 40% more first call answer rates with you. It's interest based, yes or no, and it's got the value packed into the CTA. So I love it. Okay. Without further ado, you guys, let's get to the emails. So Jack, you want to share your screen and kind of open up, show us the email, And what we're going to do, everyone, is really kind of have each one of us, we're going to reverse engineer how we wrote the email, where we found the things, because the personalization piece, I think, is the big thing that everyone wants to see. And I'm curious, Jack, give us a little context into the person you're reaching out to, why you decided to reach out to this person, what you put in the job ad, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So I'll start with my email. So I'll give you all a minute to read through this, but basically, Sarah Jo Taylor, she is the head of sales training and operations for a tool called Pack that basically is a writing assistant for students, teachers, mainly universities they work with. So what I started with here is I'm a big fan right now. I said it in the chat, job postings. That's like my number one signal that I love looking at. And that we're in the sales engagement space. So we can gather a lot of context as to who they're hiring for, whether it's an AE, SDR, whoever, and how their approach is. Are they full cycle reps, which hint, hint, this person they're hiring for is full cycle. So that means they're generating pipeline and closing deals, which is a tough task. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the chat that have that same duty. So I think we can help her in her initiative there. So this is my email. Kind of going through it, calling out that I noticed they're hiring, and this is their hiring, their job posting. So I'm going to show you all exactly like what I was looking at, what got me sparked to write this email. So from here, there's a lot that you can read through. The big one here is like, how are they adding value to the team, this new hire, which is their account executive? And it kind of just tells it right here where we can play in. They're full cycle AEs, generating new business and driving, revenue, closing deals. So that's a tough task. And if they don't have the right tool in place, that's going to be really, really tricky to balance. So that's where I think we can help. And now, who do I reach out to? Unfortunately, this job posting doesn't really say who is really responsible for this hire. Sometimes job postings will say this person will report to the director of sales, SDR manager, VP, whoever. So it didn't really say that. So I'm just kind of going with my gut. But when I look at Sarah Jo Turner, her LinkedIn sales nav profile, this is what I see. She's head of sales training. And she actually gives a really good, thorough analysis of what her job entails. So she's really big on the sales training side, onboarding side. So I know this new rep is going to go through Sarah or Sarah Jo at some point or right off the cuff. So I definitely want to get in touch with her. So that's how I kind of game plan this email. And it didn't take me too much time. I think that's what I want to be clear. I'm kind of explaining it. It's probably taking years for me to get it through, but this was really quick. Saw on their website, they're hiring, cool. Saw it. Then I went to their page. I know exactly who our personas are. And Sarah was the first one that jumped to my eye. So this is my email. So I kind of started off calling out their new hire that they're trying to hire for right now, the challenge. So this is kind of like the blend of like the social proof, the challenge that they're facing or they're probably facing and other SDR or sales leaders are facing right now. And then what I did here is I actually added in a current client of ours that had their AEs basically doing the same thing, booking and closing deals. And once they got to us and switched, they now are booking 15 meetings per month. So I wanted to call that out in this first email, and I actually bolded it. Some people may not be fans of this. I like it. I want their eyes. And I think this is also, it's kind of cool, Jason, you shared that heat map of where their eyes go to. So hopefully this kind of is in that heat map section, but I wanted to bold what I want their eyes to go to. And then lastly, my CTA, same thing we kind of talked about. Is yes or no, but I gave them options. So here, this is mix max. It's a poll. Quick click. They tell me if they want more info or if they're not interested. And then I added a PS. So kind of calling out this feature that we help teams do it. And I did similar what Florin mentioned, kind of calling out a rep on their team in my PS section, saying, hey, if you want to have one of your veteran reps try this out, like Morgan, happy to do so. That's it.
Yeah. So, do you have a couple questions on this? Just because people are asking, do you find open rates being affected at all when you drop media like this into the email?
So we've actually, I mean, obviously we've been doing this. I've been at Mixmax for over 5 years now, and we actually see it go higher. which is ironic. Because I think that's the big thing that a lot of people worry about, and we get questions about this from our own um, prospects, but we haven't seen a drop, if any. So that's actually a good sign that this is working. It obviously depends on maybe security that they have with their email provider, but we haven't seen a huge dip at all with dropping these in.
Yeah, I use a lot of polls. I haven't seen a drop. The way that I would kind of think about media, you guys, is all marketing emails are HTML emails. And marketing emails don't go straight to a spam folder. And they have links and they have they have images in them. A lot of it is um one, the reputation of the sender, two, if your email gets sent to spam or not, and then three, how many people at that same company are you reaching out to at the same exact time with the same type of email copy.
Yes.
So it's something to test. I really like this feature. If we kind of backtrack a bit, Jack,
Yeah.
what were the options of things that you considered or would consider looking at a prospect besides job postings? And by the
So
way, job postings are great. They apply to almost everyone here on the call. Like look for people hiring in the departments where your solution helps. What are the other options of things that you would have looked for?
I have it's great because getting on this call with y'all, I have so many more signals that I've been opened up to that I am now going to challenge myself to get. But I am a really big like my biggest thing that I've always been guilty of going and jumping to is their LinkedIn profile. If they have something on their LinkedIn profile, I know they want people to see it. They want to draw attention to it. So I want to be sure whatever is there, how can I tie it back? So again, I think one big thing is under their current job posting or their current role, look for this. If they have something here, you're more than likely going to have some gold that you can drop into your email and just tie it back into your pitch some way, somehow. So this is definitely always an option. I think another one that I did in my PS section is I looked for, reps, whether it's a brand new rep. And I think Florin's going to talk about that because I was in his email. Mine was talking about more veteran reps that maybe in a way stuck in their ways or have like their own flow in a way. But I want to like really test them with our tool because if they like it, then that is really going to call attention to, okay, our veteran rep really likes this. We should get it and consider it for the others. So I think that's another one, whether it's new reps or veteran reps, something to call out. The last one I'll leave with is if you are similar to us, where you have obviously direct sales clients that work hand in hand with sales coming on as with as clients, but if you have self-serve clients as well, so we balance both sides of the fence, that's a huge one that you can pull like current usage, who's using the tool, how are they using it, and then go after others, leaders or whoever persona is at that account to say, hey, your team's using it. Here's how much they're using it. You should probably
Yeah.
take a look at it. Like, does it look interesting? So those are
I
kind of
think
mine.
I think the key principle there with Jack for everyone watching is you know what the common 3 to 5 patterns are that you're looking for each time so that you don't waste a bunch of time. Like, I think the worst thing you can do is just get on Google and Google a company or go into a person's LinkedIn profile and have no idea really what you're looking for. It's kind of like going to the grocery store and just combing every single aisle versus, oh, I came here because I wanted to make pizza tonight, right? The pizza dough's over there, tomato sauce is probably next to it. All right, I'm good. Let's take off, right? So knowing those patterns in advance. One question Sean and a bunch of other people want to know about, because I mentioned this, what would be the max amount of people to reach out to at one time? So do you
Ooh.
have guidance around, because it's there's guidelines around how many people you should reach out to in a day typically, but more specifically, how many people at the same company should you reach out to at the same time?
This is a really, really good question. And I'm really curious from y'all's perspective too, but I've always told my team, uh, at least three, five max. We've seen this, and this is just ours, so it could be different in just who you're selling to, but we're selling to sales teams. So we obviously have a common or structure of like who makes decisions, who really is steering the ship, but every organization is different. We're learning every day. So we don't want to go in only targeting that one person we worked with at a previous account, because that could be the wrong person. That really isn't even remotely. So 3 to 5 is normally what I tell my team. And we've actually seen it where if you are going after that 3 to 5, range, it's going to at least catch someone's eye and it's going to get forwarded or at least passed along. Internal conversations are going to start up. And we've actually seen that happen. A lot of our emails have gotten forwarded and then meetings get booked or conversations start. So that's normally what I've told my team. But yeah, curious what y'all think.
Yeah, I think it's contextual. So if you're selling into like larger enterprise and you can sell into different divisions and multiple teams, I think you can do more. But the general rule of thumb is always like 3 to 5 for a standard company, or at least within that same division. It also depends if you have multiple domains. Typically you wouldn't want to send more than 30 emails per day from one domain because it could lead to deliverability issues. But if you're actually rotating domains, then that opens things up a little bit more for you. I think the thing that's important though is you want to make the emails to each one of those people like a little bit different, in my opinion. The way that I think about breaking into an account is going above versus below the line. So below the line is usually like ICs, maybe managers that can probably provide you some insights into the problems. And then above the line is you actually go to the VPs, the executives with the insights that you have from the people below the line to actually like show a well-researched thought as to why they should have a meeting with you now.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's a really great technique too, especially for large enterprise or strat sales, is you would never want to show up to a call with a vice president and pepper them with a bunch of questions you could have easily found answers to. That's a terrible way to start a sales motion with those folks. Um, so the consensus there, 3 to 5 contacts at a time at least that you're working at a company. And what you want to avoid is sending the same email to 5 different people at the same company at the same time. That's the type of stuff that you want to avoid. It will get your domain flagged. I've had clients whose accounts they're working flag their domain so that no emails can go through from their domain. Um, okay, I'm going to run through my example real quick, and then I want to save a bunch of time for yours, Florin. So my example is a solution that helps with DevOps. So for those of you guys that are unaware, DevOps is essentially sales enablement, but for engineers. So DevOps exists to either make a software engineer's life easier with all of the manual work that they do around coding. So there's all kinds of busy work that comes up for a developer or a development team outside of coding, and they want them to spend more time on the coding. So, with that being said, the company, my client, I removed the client and kind of the specifics there, but essentially what we want to look for is what is proof, and uh, this will answer. Someone had Mark Banbury had a question. What do you mean by 3 to 5 common patterns for personalization? This will kind of answer the question for like, what do I put in the first line of the email as the reason that I'm reaching out? The reason is the thing that you suspect is going on that is causing a problem that you could help with. So the thing that makes a developer's life really hard, for example, is if I'm looking at a company and I see that they're releasing a lot of new features, a lot of new product updates, etc. So when I look at this person's profile, I see that he works for Conga. Okay, cool. One of the first things that I could do is a job posting search. I'm going to show you that in a second. But really, the thing that I like to do, let me know if you guys have ever done this before. I'll drop this into the chat. Give us a yes or a no. Do you guys use this this Boolean operator of putting site, colon, and then the website? And what this allows you to do is like a Google search within the actual website instead of using their search bars, which always suck. Give me a yes or a no if you use this. This is like a way to instantly find stuff that you're looking for without having to go to the website. Like honestly, if this was like one of the few things that you took from the webinar, this saves you so much time. So basically what I did is I said, hey, in conga.com, their website, let me just look and see if they have a product launch calendar. And oh, what do you know? They do have a product launch calendar. Let's click on it. So this basically shows all of the things that they're deploying and have deployed and are going to deploy in their product. So if I wanted to, literally, I could just pull anything off of this product roadmap and say, hey, I saw that you guys released X amount of features this year so far, or hey, I saw that something really big coming up in June of 2024 is a product launch series around ABC ENF projects, right? So I could go through and point out some of those things. What I decided to do instead was go for the job postings because it's kind of low hanging fruit, right? They have 35 job openings, and I looked for developer, I looked for engineer. Let's see what pops up here. There it was, engineer. So one thing that stuck out to me a lot about them is they have a lot of different types of engineers that they need with different types of experience and different types of languages that they code in. So standardizing, I'll drop it into the chat again for you, Shaylin. That's the formula. It's site colon, and then you put their .com right there, and then you can put a keyword search. So what I decided to do, I'll go to my example, is I decided to look and see, hey, they're engineers and developers. They're looking for people with a lot of different type of experience. And that's what I'm going to point out in the email. I'm going to put those languages. So I use the rule of three subject line. I use those languages that they need their developers to code. The problem statement, hey, with all these different skill sets across the team, avoiding context switching, that's the number one thing that these DevOps people complain about, is that their engineers have to do too much context switching. Creates unnecessary toil across the org. Social proof, Cisco's team is using our solution to enable developer agility, get engineers self-serving, reduce new developer onboarding time. Worth a quick chat as you scale the team at Sama. Cool. That's the email right there. It's less than 5 word subject line, internal camouflage, personalization's relevant to them, points out a specific challenge, social proof. It's got the value, simple CTA, all of that kind of stuff. So Ferris asked, how do you know the issue with context switching? Um, I know this issue because one of the exercises that you can do, this is the very first exercise I do with the sales team when I work with them, is we do a messaging workshop. And we say, hey, Jack, Florin, you guys sell to DevOps leaders every day. Let's come up to a consensus as a team with like, what are their common goals that they have when they hop on sales calls with you? What do they want to accomplish? How do they get the job done? So current solutions. If they're not using your solution, what are they using instead? And then what problems does that create for them? And then what do they ultimately want? So it's what do I want to get done? How do I get it done right now? What are the problems that I have? And then ultimately, what are the outcomes that I want to accomplish? So priorities, current state or solution, problems, desired future state. That messaging matrix, what you'll find is that 80% of the people you sell to fit into one or two of those categories. And that if you go niche enough in an industry and you focus on the same persona, 80-90% of the people like talk the same language about that thing. And I'll drop it into the chat again for you guys. If you do that exercise, that'll give you all of the language that you need to plug into your email.
Yeah. The other thing you can do there, I think customers should come up with your messaging. Like if you have G2 reviews or trust radius pilot, whatever, just go look at how your customers are talking about the problem and like try to find snippets of very similar phrases that they use. The other thing you can do, this is a bit more time consuming, but if you can try to interview some customers, maybe like 3 to 5, like your best top accounts and personas, and just ask them, be like, how in a cold email, if you were to like write out the problem we're solving, what's the sentence you would use, and pick up themes.
Yep.
That's a big one. We've recently gone back to our Gong recordings and just listened to, because it's one of those things, like if you kind of run into droughts, like days where you're just not getting anything, it's like, okay, I must be missing something. Go and listen to your Gong calls. Customers are huge because they're obviously using it, but prospects too. Listen, read. I know it's cringe, I'm sure, listening to yourself, but go and listen to what they're saying and copy exactly that into your emails. Like talked about those problems. That's a big one.
Yep. Lauren, you want to share your screen?
Yeah. Quick question. On the product launch, does every company have that, by the way? Because that's like the craziest hack if you're selling into engineering. I'm just curious.
Yeah, most of the big companies have a product release like calendar, and then they also have documentation of all of the edits and updates that they make to their product.
Yeah, that's crazy. You can literally, that's a subject line right there. Each project or release is a subject line. That's like automatic open.
100%. Especially if it's like a product launch where go-to-market team's gonna, get that out. That's another one like that you could use. Like you're gearing up for this, I'm sure. Oh man, yeah, you basically just changed the game, Jason, with that one. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Go ahead, Florin. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Let's take a look at your email.
Yeah, keep it pretty simple. It's difficult to follow that one up. I was like, damn, that's a lot of value. But okay, so mine was for a company called Hyperbound. It's like AI buyers. So you can essentially tune these AI bots to run like mock discovery calls and even demos and stuff like that. Or if you're releasing a new product, you can help your reps like go through objections. So it kind of goes back to this idea. What are the themes of what you ultimately help with? So for Hyperbound, one of the things is ramping reps. So the first thing I'm thinking about automatically is, okay, I either am going to look at job postings to see what companies are hiring SDRs or what companies have actually just hired SDRs that are now currently like in a ramp period, right? Now, the other thing you can do as well, which I think might be a little bit of a hack that's interesting, a lot of people when they get a new job they're going to post about it. So what you could do in the search bar is even just type in like starting a new position as a sales development rep and see like in the last week how many people have started in sales development reps, and then go find all those lists of companies. So one person that I found was Robert here. He just started at Stencil. So automatically, the first thing that I did was go on Stencil's page. I also saw that they're selling to very large enterprise customers. This typically means that the conversations and the buyer is very complex. So having role plays of different situations is probably going to be helpful because ramp times when you sell to large enterprise are larger. So problem is likely bigger, right? So I found this specific person, Connor, who runs the sales development side of things there. And then the first thing I did, I put ramp for Robert. So right now, Connor is obviously thinking about ramping up Robert because he just started. So 3 words, called out the SDR by name. Then what I did here, again, observation, saw that you're brought on Robert, and I called out the specific enterprise logo names off of their website or on that LinkedIn page, as you saw here. Super simple to do. You don't need to use any crazy tools for that. Then you kind of get into, this is when I'm talking about like tying the context to things. So, okay, what is the problem with Robert starting now and selling to large enterprise companies? That is the key sentence for me in every email. And the problem is that when you have complex buyers, helping them ramp fast is critical because it could take like 3, 4, 5, 6 months before they start booking meetings. Then I go into social proof, specifically how we solve for that problem and the results that we've gotten. And then this is what I was talking about earlier, where this is an interest-based CTA, but I'm not just saying, are you interested? I want to finish off the email with a thought for Connor to be like, hey, do you want to give Robert a test run for free? So I highly recommend if you are able to provide like a free trial or somebody can run, in this case with Hyperbound, a free simulation like off the bat, give them a very low hanging fruit or like frictionless experience. Like, hey, just go try it out for free. There's nothing that you really need to do. We don't need to have a meeting right away. And then after that, if they're blown away, you can actually book that meeting. Now, I took it a step further with the PS. So the PS, I use it in a few different ways. I think if there's some random kind of personalization that doesn't fit into the email, maybe it's like the city that they're in, or they mentioned that they love like pizza or their hobbies. Instead of trying to create an analogy in that email, just like show that extra level of personalization in the PS. Or in this case, I used it to talk about another thought. Like I actually researched and saw that Brandon and Grace have been SDRs there for 2+ years. You can also use it for these different things. Or the other thing you can do, you can actually make this PS the second email, which is now going to be a bump up email. And that's all you need to say. You don't need to write a full new email. Just one sentence, bump it up. Okay, this is interesting. It's different than just saying, hey, I'm following up, right? So I'd be pretty confident if we send this email to Connor, we'd get uh, a reply or a forward or at least some kind of answer.
Yep. So Maddie said, "How did you find that Connor is Robert's manager?" You're just kind of using deductive reasoning, I would imagine, based on the size of the team.
Yeah, in this case, I little like I'm not even using Sales Navigator just so for the people that don't have access to like expensive tools, like you can literally just go here and search up different people.
Yeah. Tyler said this is one of his accounts today. That's funny. I dropped a link, you guys, to this playbook in the chat here. Um, make a copy of that. Florin, good stuff. What I really like about what you did in that email is that it flows very nicely and it's very connected and doesn't feel like scatterbrained, which is so hard to do. Um, but I think like one of the things there is like you're looking at all of the different situations that might happen, and it's like I think that's like sequencing mastery is when you have a sequence for every common situation that you come across to where it's just like which sequence do they fit in, and then let me slightly tailor it, right? um okay, we got to run here in a minute. Grab the link there in the chat that I dropped. I got two more links for you, three more actually. The free cold email starter pack for Magical is in there. Mixmax, my sales engagement tool of choice. Go check that out. They just launched a HubSpot integration, so I was super excited
Hit
about
me
that.
up.
HubSpot,
Send me
yeah.
a LinkedIn message if y'all are interested.
Uh, Lauren, last but not least, you got a cold email course that if people want more advanced stuff like this, you want to drop that into the chat and maybe give a quick blurb about it so people can go check it out?
Yeah, 100%. So just very quickly, like this is something that I'm obviously very passionate about. I used to answer a lot of questions and I was like, why don't I just build a course? So I have 3 hours of videos where I go deep into like copywriting, into emails and building out sequences. So it is on my LinkedIn profile. And I am also just going to quickly drop the link here and we'll get you all on your way. Thank you all so
All right,
much.
there it is. Thank you, fellas. This is a great webinar. That's all I got for you guys today. We'll email out the replay to you guys if you want it, and we'll include all of these links to you guys as well. That's all I got. We will see you. Have a good
Awesome.
one, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
See ya.